Good morning. How's everybody doing? So, scripture of the day, Deuteronomy 31:6. Be strong and courageous. Do not be afraid or terrified because of them, for the Lord your God goes with you. He will never leave you nor forsake you. So anything you're going through in life, don't fear or panic, for if the Lord is on your side, then He will stand by you in whatever you're going through. So on to today's subject, airbags. So as you saw, airbags can drop and raise the back end of your truck. This is a semi-truck, so it has 4 in the back, and that's so it can actually level and load safely the 80,000 gross vehicle weight rating that it has. And the ones in semi-trucks are actually self-leveling, so I'll show you what that looks like. So on these newer trucks, a lot of them are actually electronically controlled. And what it'll do is, if there's a significantly heavier load on the back axle or the middle axle, because sometimes the trailers will go up further, it will increase the air capacity on what it needs until the system reads at its level again. On the older trucks, it was just a lever. So it'd literally just be at the end of the truck. And I'll probably cap in a picture right here. But basically, until that stick read level, it would keep increasing air or take it away depending on if you're riding empty or if you're riding full. Why does all that matter? On your pickup truck, airbags can be a really good tool to level and make your towing experience safer. But oftentimes we see a lot of people, they're squatted out, and you'll probably see it right here. So they're really tongue heavy trailers that they're pulling, or they didn't load their trailer properly, or things like that. So in my other video, you saw me raising up the point at which the hitch touches the truck. And I did that because I needed the trailer to ride more level than it was. Now, with the air safe hitch, the airbag acts as a object of comfort, more or less. If you have a heavier tongue weight, you can increase the air, but it's not going to increase or level the capacity of your truck if you're sagging. What you need instead are to add some airbags to your axle. Much like you saw in the semi-truck here, you have the ability to drop or increase air pressure depending on how much weight you have in the back of your truck. The weight from your trailer will basically add the weight to the back of your truck. Now, some of you might have coils in the back, some of you might have leaf springs, but airbags can be used in congruence with both of those. Got a little bit warm out. So on my truck specifically, I added 2 airbags. So usually you want 2 airbags so you can level out between the left side and the right side. So I added them and I plumbed them separately because if I'm going around a turn and I'm very top heavy, I didn't want the air traveling back and forth between each bag. Now, some people might have other experience with that, but just like in a semi-truck, each airbag is plumbed separately to prevent this from happening, because if the load transfers from one side to the other, it would squish more air out of one bag and move it to the other side where you don't need it. And I didn't want to run into any issues with that, so yeah, I plumbed them separately. And I'll show you what that looks like now. So right here, I have my left side and my right side airbag. And they sit on this truck right there by the shock on the axle. Now, what airbags can do for you, not only can they give you extra lift, but they can also dampen the way your truck handles the extra weight being thrown in the back of your bed. So for me and my truck, I always have generally about 350 pounds worth of things in the back of my truck, plus a spare tire. And that can change if I go to add fuel to my auxiliary tank. And once it's full to the brim, which I don't usually keep it full all the time, it adds an extra 750 pounds of fuel on board. So that plus the fuel that I have in the regular tank, and you're sitting at least 1,000 pounds worth of just fuel. And that doesn't include the trailer, the tools, the spare tires, you know, anything else that we bring along to some of the events that I go to. And that doesn't include the passengers too, and all the other extra stuff that we bring with that. So off-roading, you wouldn't want to have them aired up because there's no weight. You want as much articulation as you can get. So whenever I installed this kit the first time, I had it bolted to the axle. And whenever you're driving down the road empty, you feel the extra ricochet and you get more noise feedback because it's connected to your driveline. Now, I supplemented that with some Daystar cradles. So what they do, house the airbags on top of the axle. You can see it over there as well. So this is free to float whenever I am going over a bump. This will actually raise up out of the cradle and not stretch my airbag if I'm going off-road. Alright, so I will add some air, and I'll do it on one side at a time, and you'll see each side raised separately, and then I'll show you what it looks like on the outside of the truck. So as you see now, this side has 65 psi, and this side is sitting at about 6.5 psi. So we'll finish airing up the other side and then continue. You can kind of see both sides of the truck are now lifted up. You see the airbag, these are rated to 100 psi a piece. And the series that I have is Airlift 7500 XL. And I don't think that directly correlates to how much weight they can lift. But me personally, whenever I towed my 48-foot trailer, I helped a buddy out, and I had to air them up to about 55 psi is the most that I've ever had in them until I make this video. And it's because my trailer is very tongue heavy. It's a triple axle 48-foot car hauler, and it's very, very top heavy. So adding all the air in, plumbing it separately, it really helped. Now, they also have other options for airbags. If you're lifted more than I am right now, I'm a stock height. They have Carli long travel airbags, and they do stay connected, but they're designed to basically articulate with whatever bump you go across. So say you're lifted 6 inches and you're lifted 4 in the back. So you go over a rock, you need one wheel to go down further than the other side. And that airbag that they have, I'll just post it right here, actually still gives you that articulation. Now, I don't personally have any experience with those because my needs were greater than what those can actually do for me because of how big my trailer is. But these airbags and the Daystar cradles, the Daystar cradles is, I think, maybe $50 or $60 on Amazon, depending on what you can find. And that right there, now I'm free to go off-road, tow my trailer, so on and so forth. Whenever you're running empty, these airbags, I would recommend 10 to 12 psi of pressure, and that's just to ensure that they maintain their stability whenever you're not using them. When you're going off-road, I would air them down as much as you can, and if you want to, you can even take out the Daystar cradle, but just, you know, if you are going to that extreme measure of articulation. But yeah, just air them down as much as you can and then air them back up to 10 to 12 psi. And then if you're loaded, depending on what kind of trailer you have, I would recommend loading the trailer down first, just like you saw me do with the semi-truck, and then airing it up slowly until you sit just about level. And I'm not saying you have to break out like a bubble level or anything, but for the most part, just make sure that your truck isn't pointed to the sky whenever you're going to bump down the road. And you might have to stop within 50 miles and air them up a little bit more, just because if you are towing with a heavier load for a longer time, then sometimes the airbags they'll expand in such a way you have to re-level the system. But just something to keep in mind. Or airlift also includes a onboard air compressor that you can do it on the fly. But I'll just mention that here, and then yeah. So one thing that I never got to do was film how to install these. It varies between year, make, and model of whatever truck you have. So they have ones for like Nissan Titans, Toyota Tundras, F-150s, F-250s, things like that. So what I like about airlift over something like a Timbren or a Firestone bag is that they include all the bracketry you need out of the box. And all it does is bolt to your frame, bolt to your axle, and then there's a couple of U-bolts that hold it steady in the specific place that you need. So the only thing that I had to modify was the direction of a few of the bolts whenever I put in the Daystar cradles. I'll go over that with you now, just so you kind of know what you have to do whenever you install this. All right, so the last little bit that I'm going to show you is how the bracketry actually bolts up to the truck. Now, the first thing I would recommend doing before you start this job is to jack up the back of your truck using the trailer hitch or something else on the frame behind the drive tires. Now, this is going to vary depending on what truck you have, but for Ram 2500s, the newer ones, they have coil lifts. So you might get a little bit more space than you would on a leaf spring truck like mine, but that's just so you can have as much space as possible to actually put the components where they need to be. So you have the frame right here. Don't mind the rust. I would jack up somewhere right there so that you can lift the back of the truck up right on the frame right there, because the trailer hitch is bolted straight to the frame. Alright, so we're under the truck here, and you'll notice these U-bolts right here. So when you first throw everything in here, you want to leave it pretty loose until you set the truck suspension back down, as in remove the jack. So you have this plate right here, and if you buy a kit and you don't want to install a Daystar cradle, that's okay. You bolt this here, it wraps around the bottom of your leaf for this model, and then the U-bolts right here, or they're just bolts, they bolt to the bracket, and you leave it loose until you settle the truck down so it sits straight. So that's the bottom portion. Now the top portion actually removes your bump stop, and I don't know if you can see that, but it bolts to the top plate for the system right there. So that's where your bump stop would usually be, right here. And it actually removes it and swaps it out for a puck so that your bag is spaced a little bit further down. And then the way that I routed the air, you see the air fitting right there, they just press in and I loop them over the spare tire. So this is the driver's side. There's the bump stop drop right there. and this is the passenger side. Same U-bolt. The U goes on that side because that's where all the rotating mass is, and you want it to stick out on this side. Same bracketry down here. It wraps around your axle. It's perforated too. And then these right here are perforated to sit on top of your axle, but you can move it depending on how you set it up. There's a better picture of the cradle. And there's a U-bolt right here that goes on top of your frame to hold it in place. And then you see the air line right here. I left it dangling. I made sure there was proper clearance, even if I'm bouncing up and down. There's the air. And then from there, it bolts to this because this is in two pieces. You bolt this up, and then you insert this however you're going to do that. Now the only caveat is for the Daystar cradle, I actually cut a bolt down so that it would be smaller, and you see this nut right here. In order to put that on, I would recommend bolting the Daystar cradle to this before you install the airbag. Now when the back of your truck's lifted, you have a lot more space, so you'll have room to move this in and out. Alright, so while I'm under my truck, there's one more thing that you need to kind of understand about the system. On the passenger side, there's a little plate. Now you want to put that plate on the axle to block the heat so that your bag doesn't get overheated. Right there. And they include that, and you can use it if you want to. You don't have to, but you'll run the risk of overheating the bag, and then it'll start leaking because of how close they get. They include little ties, and then you just set that where you want, and yeah, that's pretty much it. Now obviously every setup's going to look a little bit different, but if you have a leaf spring type setup and you have a ram, this is pretty much what your system's going to look like once it's installed. I would highly recommend airlift, and they also have a onboard air compressor like I mentioned earlier in the video, and it looks like this. And when you do that, you'll basically always have air, but it's only for the airbags. It's not designed to air up tires. Like, you can't run another hose to it. I'm sure you could do some kind of modifying, but it's literally only for your airbags. The only thing I don't like about that system, like I stated before, it plumbs into a T and it runs both of them at the same time. So if your load shifts, like say you have a bunch of fuel like I do, or like a big tub of water or something that you're hauling, the air will get pushed around left and right. So just something to keep in mind. So just in case the other view wasn't good, this is the back where the diff is. There you see the bump stop drop. Then it bolts there. And you assemble the bag and the bottom plate right there before you install it onto the truck. There the U-bolt is to hold it to the leaf spring. And then you just want to keep it loose until everything is seated back down. Here's the other side. The other side is tilted more just because of the design of the axle. So yeah, we'll wrap it up right here. And like I said, if you have any questions, concerns, comments about other recommendations that I would have for an airbag system for your truck, don't hesitate to leave me a comment. I'm pretty well versed in this sector because I'm a professional driver. So Timbren, Airlift, and Firestone, those are the bigger manufacturers for these airbag systems. I just like Airlift because they have a bolt-on system that works for pretty much any truck. manufacturer, and they have, I believe, the highest rated bags of any other system. That might be wrong now. It's been a minute since I've installed my system, but this is the 7500 XL model, and I'll list a link in the description, and if you could use any of those links to buy anything that you need, it'll help the channel grow. I really appreciate it. And yeah, I hope y'all have a blessed week. It's only Monday, but work hard every day, and y'all stay safe out there.